Hello crafty friends! For today's card I am going to be walking through how to make what I'm going to call a reverse gatefold card, and I'm going to be using products that are out in the new August to December mini catalog, and I'm so excited because I can finally show this to you. And this is going to be using products from the Gilded Autumn suite, including this beautiful Gilded Autumn Specialty Designer Series paper. Along with this fall card theme, I also have 3 other examples of cards that I made using this same design, but using different products, some Christmas products, some Halloween products, as well as a card made with the Flowers for Every Season paper. So I'll show you those at the end of the video. So sit back and let's get started on making this card. Let's get started on today's card. So I'm going to be using a piece of early espresso cardstock, and I have cut it at 5.5 inches, and I took just 1/4 of an inch off. So this is 10 3/4 by 5.5 inches. The very first thing that we're going to do with this card is we're going to score it. So I'm going to put it in my score board, and I'm going to score in from each end. That way I don't have to do the math to figure out the distance in between the middle scores. So the very first score is going to be at 1 1/8 of an inch. Make sure you're using your scoring blade. And then the next score is going to be at 3 1/4 inch. Now you don't have to worry about remembering all these measurements, because I will have a full instruction sheet over on our website with all the supplies and measurements and instructions, and the link for that will be down in the show notes below. If you are interested in trying this project for yourself, I sure would appreciate it if you would consider making your supply purchase from me. The link to my online store will be in the show notes below. Now that we have it scored, we're going to burnish the edges. I always like to burnish the back, and that just keeps the card from staying closed a little bit better. So we're going to do that side, and then we're going to do this side. Now we are going to fold the gate folds inwards or outwards. And these you don't have to worry, because it's actually going to get glued down as soon as we put our panels on the front. And before I burnish this side down, I want to make sure that no matter how accurate you are, sometimes your score lines are just not quite in the right spot, and you want this to be closed, but you don't want it to be catching. So I'm just kind of pulling this out to make sure that it sits nice and flush. There, now that is a perfect closure. Okay, so the very next thing that we're going to do is we are going to take some of the beautiful, beautiful paper. And this was, I believe, Autumn Splendor is the designer series paper. It is out of the new holiday catalog, and it is back in the fall section. It is Gilded Autumn specialty paper, and look how beautiful this set is. So these are 2 of the pieces that I thought really went well together, and I'm going to cut strips out that will then go onto the front of our card. So I'll be right back. Okay, here we have our strips. So this strip here is cut to 1 1/8 inch, and then this strip here is cut to exactly 1 inch. What that will do is that will give us a 1/16 inch of a border all the way around. So let's adhere these down. Now I am going to try my Stampin' Seal here. And this is going to go on the outside, and I want to make sure that I have the pattern with the leaves facing upwards. And I'm going to align it so that there's just a 1/16 inch of a reveal on each side. And this paper, I also want to make sure that I'm consistent, and I can either put it both sides facing down or facing up, and I'm actually going to put it, looks like it's petals facing upwards. And again, I'm going to do 1/16 inch of a reveal on the outer edge and the top and the bottom edges. And when this folds down, it just covers that up. So we can take some of our adhesive and put it along this edge. It's the only spot you really need because it'll just hold it down. Okay, there we go. Look at that. It's beautiful. Now the very next thing that we're going to do, burnish these edges again so it sits nice and flat. Take some cardstock, and I'm going to cut out the leaves from this Gathered Together stamps die set. Now these are the Gathered Leaves dies. I believe they're in a bundle in this year's mini catalog, and they were actually part of last year's holiday catalog as well. And I'm going to take the 3 smallest leaves, and I'm going to use some copper paper, some Cajun Craze paper, and some early espresso paper, and cut some leaves out from the cardstock. I'll be right back. Okay, while I was at it, I also found these awesome sprigs, and these are little wheat stalks, and these were in the die set that is part of the Autumn Greetings bundle. And this is the Autumn Essentials dies, and these are some pretty awesome dies. This stamp set has this big, beautiful outlined fall-themed flower arrangement. It has a big, giant die, but beyond that, it also has all of these other dies, and these are actually pretty cool. This is for edges. Here's 3 different wheat stalks. We got some pumpkins. And I decided to cut the wheat stalks out of the crumb cake cardstock because there is some color of that in the paper. So if you take a look at the paper, you can see that there's some crumb cake, Cajun Craze, and early espresso, as well as a very vanilla. So now that I have all of my leaves and everything cut out, what I'd like to do is arrange them and figure out how I'm going to have them positioned. Now that I have an idea of how I want everything to be aligned, what I want to do is take some of this Glad press and seal, and I'm going to press it over all of the leaves, and that will keep everything exactly where I want it arranged. And that kind of gives you the ability to keep everything where you want it so that you can glue it all down, and it kind of retains the look that you want to go for. So there's a sticky side and a not sticky side. I'm going to take the sticky side and press this down. That way everything stays in place. And I can pick it up, and I'm going to cut off the ends of those stalks because I don't want those showing in the background. Okay, so the very next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some very vanilla paper, and this is the offcut of the early espresso paper, and I'm going to use these two largest dies. And this is what my sentiment's going to get stamped on, and then this just provides a nice little outline around it. So before we stick these down, I'm going to run these through the die machine. I'll be right back. Okay, here are my two pieces, and you can see that they have the beautiful stitch edging on it, and it has a nice, about not quite 1/4 inch reveal, 3/16 inch of reveal around it. I'm going to take the sentiment from the Autumn Greetings stamp set. It says, "Give thanks with a grateful heart." Before I stamp that on though, I do want to glue my flower arrangement down, and that way that will give me an idea of exactly where I need to position it, because most of it's actually going to take up this top half of the card here. So let's attach these together. Here we go. Now I'm going to take my glue, because obviously the tape is not working as well as I would hope, and I'm just going to glue all of this right down onto there. And so now I have all of these pieces all arranged. So all I need to do is just make sure each piece has some glue on it. I can pick the whole thing up and press it down onto a card. And what I'm going to do, before I do that though, I'm going to put my sentiment down to make sure that there's enough room for it once I get everything adhered on. So this sits down here very nicely down at the very bottom. So that gives me an idea of exactly where I need to put all my leaves. And because this came way up like this, that means that there's enough room in the back here to adhere down to all of the leaves, including the nice copper one there. Very carefully remove the press and seal, because your little wheats are actually very delicate. Now I know that this leaf here may not have very much glue on it, so I'll just add a little bit of glue, because that was the very bottom one that couldn't be seen from behind. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take this greeting here from the Autumn Greetings Cling Stamp Set, and I am going to use some early espresso ink, and I'm going to put the sentiment right down here at the bottom. Now this stamp, the font on this stamp is a really thin font, and my early espresso is kind of dried out, so it's not going to be the darkest, most contrasty sentiment ever. But you know what? We'll go with it. All right, we are almost done with this card. The next thing that we need to do is adhere this onto the front. And in order to do that, I want to make sure that I put adhesive on this left side and make sure that I don't get any on the right side. I want to center this in the middle and in the middle. I know that we have some copper paper, and I know we have some copper foiling going on, but you know what? It just wouldn't be one of my cards without a little bit of bling. So I'm going to add 3 of these champagne rhinestone jewels, and I'm going to use 1 of each of the different sizes just to add a little bit of extra interest. Okay, there is our final card. Look how beautiful that is. There is so much shine on this card, so much sparkle. I'm thrilled with how this turned out. But as I promised earlier at the start of the video, I did actually make 3 other cards using this set, just to show how versatile this card design is. So the first card that I made is using the Flowers for Every Season paper and some of the ribbon, using the in color ribbon. And this is just a card that's off of a white card base. This is the Designer Series paper. There is actually a Memories and More card that looks very similar to this. However, this is using the Designer Series paper. Now you will notice the die set that I used for this comes from one of my very favorite die sets, and that is the Stitched So Sweetly die set. And I used the smallest one for the hello. The hello on this card came from the Beauty Abounds stamp set. And this is actually, you could have used thanks or hello or even for you. So this Beauty Abounds has several different friendship greetings that I thought was perfect for this card. Next up, moving later in the season, is this awesome Halloween card. And I used... This is all products that came from the Magic in This Night suite, and I used the Hallows Night Magic stamp set extensively on this card, as well as this gorgeous Designer Series paper. Now, if you saw my unboxing video, I did walk through all the different paper that is in this Designer Series paper set, and it's absolutely beautiful. Now, on the inside of this card, I actually did a lot with the inside of this card. I used some masking, and I used this label that I also used on the front, and I masked it off to take the top corner here and then put the bottom corner down here, and added Mr. Spider in on the inside of the card as well. So this one was a lot of fun. I absolutely love Halloween, and so I was excited to be able to use all the stuff in this set for a nice little Halloween card. So that is our third card. I'll put this one over here. And then the very last card uses paper from the 'Tis the Season Designer Series paper set. This is a 6x6 paper set, and I actually have, if you take a look up in this corner, I'll put a link for the walkthrough video that I did that shows you all the papers that are in the Designer Series paper set. And this is a card that was a Memories and More card, and I also walked through all of the Memories and More cards in that video. So I used this on some shaded spruce paper, and I kind of like, may you never be too grown up to search the skies on Christmas Eve. So there are 4 very different cards, all using the same pattern or the same fun fold. I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you could give it a big thumbs up, that would be fantastic. Have a crafty day. Bye-bye.